Tonight, a crime spree near Church and Wellesley has many in the neighborhood on edge tonight.
Puddle of glass, just shards and shards of glass.
Signs of a troubling trend in the village. What's behind a rash of break-ins? Plus,
they say cut back, we say fight back.
And fight back they did. The entire board of the Brant County Children's Aid Society resigned today. We'll tell you why and how the ministry is responding. And summer's wading in. Do you have a spot to cool down? We'll take you to a quiet quarry that's making waves in Caledon. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. We're hearing from several business owners in the Church and Wellesley area tonight who saw their stores broken into in the past few weeks. At this point, they don't appear to be hate crimes, but they do seem targeted towards that neighborhood, and that has many in the area concerned. Ramna Shahzad has more.
Curtis Lau says his restaurant has only been open a couple of months. He was surprised to see it targeted for a break-in.
I was shocked. I was like, well, actually, people had sort of warned me about something like this potentially happening, but I never thought it would happen to us.
This was just one in a series of break-ins in the Church Wellesley area in the past few days.
They actually didn't take any cash, but they took multiple tablets that we use for delivery platforms.
The owners of Torch Press Sushi came to their door to find it completely smashed in and glass everywhere on the ground. The same thing happened just a couple of doors down at Ho's Place, a barber shop, and not once but twice this week, right across the street at Dead Dog Records.
They get frustrated and angered by the first one, and 2 nights later get busted into again. It's just a drag on you. So it's just trying to stay positive in front of all of our customers and make a good showing of it all and still be light and breezy.
The head of the local business improvement area says the incidents don't seem like they're targeting the neighborhood's LGBT community.
These break-and-enters are like sort of smash and grabs, and they don't seem at all related to the hate crimes.
But the area's councillor says because of hateful incidents in the past, it's always unsettling when there's a rash of crime.
Throughout the past few months, we have seen homophobic preachers show up in the village, specifically spouting anti-gay, anti-trans rhetoric. Whether or not this activity is specifically targeting the LGBT community, it's not clear to me, but certainly it was targeting the village.
Dead Dog Records isn't taking any more chances. The doors are still boarded up, and a new security system is being installed inside the store.
Like I say, it is what it is. You can just go. As long as nobody gets hurt, that's the big thing for me. So.
Ramna Shahzad, CBC News, Toronto.
A man is in hospital with life-threatening injuries tonight after a crash in Mississauga. His motorcycle collided with an SUV on Winston Churchill Boulevard and Dover Gate. This happened just before 9 o'clock tonight. Police say there were 4 people in the car. They were all taken to hospital as a precaution.
It's still very early in this investigation, but what we do know at this time is that the motorcycle was traveling northbound on Winston Churchill Boulevard, and the car was attempting to make a left turn onto Homelands Drive from southbound Winston Churchill Boulevard.
Peel Police are asking anyone who may have seen the crash to give them a call. Protesters gathering in front of the U.S. consulate tonight to draw attention to migrant detention camps in the United States.
So we've been hearing a lot about what's been happening in the United States with migrant camps, with the kids being separated from their parents and all of them being kept in inhuman conditions. We believe that people of good conscience, good people, need to stand up and say this is wrong, this is evil.
The group gathered along University Avenue, many carrying signs. They are part of a global effort called Lights for Liberty. Organizers say there are 750 similar protests around the world today. A suicide bomb attack at a hotel in southern Somalia has left at least 10 people dead, one of them a Canadian, Hodin Nalaya, a Somali-Canadian journalist who went to school at Seneca College and once lived in Vaughan. Now, Mogadishu-based Radio Dalsan is telling CBC News that Nalaya was killed. She is seen here in an interview on Metro Morning from 2017. Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of a bombing and has consular officials in contact with local authorities, but has yet to confirm her death. The armed group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack in the port city of Kismayo. The group says they targeted the hotel with a suicide car bomb and then sent in armed fighters. Legislators and local elders were inside discussing an upcoming local election. Al-Shabaab had been driven out of the city in the past, but still controls parts of the region outside the city. A man is under arrest tonight in connection to that quadruple stabbing that took place during the Raptors' victory parade last month. Now, these are some of the images that police released at the time of the possible suspect. Investigators say during the massive celebration in the wake of the Raptors' NBA Finals win, a man approached and stabbed a group of men in the Yonge Dundas Square area. 29-year-old Michael O'Neill Donalds of Richmond Hill is facing a number of charges, including aggravated assault and possession of a weapon. And Canadian singer Jacob Hoggard will stand trial before a jury. The frontman for the band Headley is charged with 2 counts of sexual assault causing bodily harm and 1 count of sexual interference. The singer is pleading not guilty to the charges. Police arrested and charged the 35-year-old last summer. They say the charges relate to 3 separate incidents involving a woman and a girl under the age of 16. Those incidents allegedly occurred in the Toronto area 3 years ago. And a man is fighting for his life in hospital tonight after a scare in the water near Ashbridges Bay. Paramedics responding to an emergency call around 2 o'clock this afternoon. When they arrived, they found the man unconscious. Now, a viewer sent us this photo showing lifeguards and emergency crews helping the patient across the beach. Paramedics rushed him to hospital in life-threatening condition. Time for our first look at the weather forecast with Nick Cernkovich. So how's the weekend shaping up?
Well, you know, Mike, overall not too bad, although a little bit of a mixed bag on Saturday. We're looking at humidity increasing once again. You might have noticed it was a little cooler today, but with that, we've got some thunderstorms in the forecast. However, it will be a sunny end to the weekend. Today, only 24 degrees is our daytime high. This in the wake of a cold front that moved through yesterday. But that's all changing. Warmer weather is on its way, and that's going to be in advance of yet another cold front. So as we move through tomorrow, look for increasing temperatures and humidity. But round about the afternoon, through about noon to 6 p.m., we're looking at scattered showers and thunderstorms. They clear out quickly, and once again, the temperatures start to drop back down to more seasonal values. For tonight, though, 15 degrees. Tomorrow, 29 degrees. Humidex up to 35, and there is even hotter weather in the long-range forecast. Full details coming up.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nick. We now know the cause of that fire that hit 650 Parliament Street earlier this week, the second fire in that building in under a year. Officials say Wednesday's fire on the 15th floor started from a stovetop burner. Fire officials say in the scramble to evacuate the building during the electrical fire last August, the burner was left in the on position. Now, crews in the building on Wednesday restored the power as they were testing the electrical system. That's when materials left on the stove ignited. More than 1,500 residents are still displaced from last year's fire. And many of those residents saying today they've had enough. Hundreds are pushing for special recognition and assistance from the city. It's something the St. Jamestown neighborhood didn't qualify for before. We'll tell you why after the break. The fire that has displaced hundreds of residents at 650 Parliament Street is just the latest challenge facing St. Jamestown. Many residents complain they've been neglected for years. Now they're pushing for a special designation that could bring in more funding for local services. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly shows us why advocates say the low-income area needs the help.
Good to see you. How are you? Do you know about this petition that we're signing to designate North St. Jamestown a neighborhood improvement area?
Rob Johannes collected signatures from the neighborhood's residents over the last few months, and roughly 700 of them shared a similar sentiment.
So we could actually start new community development initiatives.
Because, you know, need government support, right?
Absolutely.
City support has been around in recent years as the community endured multiple high-rise fires that left hundreds of people displaced. But some say it doesn't address day-to-day issues in the mostly low-income neighborhood.
When things do happen, the community often finds they're mobilizing and looking after themselves before the city comes to get involved.
Didn't you go to outreach today?
Longtime community members say there's an array of challenges leading people to resource centers like this in the heart of St. Jamestown.
There's a lot of in regards to mental health and addiction. As well as housing is a big crisis.
It's getting more expensive to live here. People can't afford to eat. There's one food bank in the neighborhood.
The hundreds backing the petition now want staff to reassess the neighborhood, which didn't make the cut for priority funding in the city's 2014 assessment.
Just sign your name and put your address there.
The local councillor says it's because it was lumped in with an affluent neighborhood to the south.
I believe those are the numbers that sort of skewed the St. Jamestown evaluation, and we missed the mark by literally 5%.
5 years later, in the wake of headline-making incidents, there's new hope city staff will give the area a second look and a long-awaited boost in investment.
It's a very, very eclectic and diverse community, but at the same time, maybe not quite as a direct result of that, it can often be a highly overlooked and highly neglected community as well.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Another resignation by a PC government appointee to tell you about. Ian Naida stepped down from the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board after being appointed there last year. That came after the NDP revealed today he has connections to Premier Ford's former Chief of Staff, Dean French.
Did the fact that he had connections to Mr. French and Mr. Ford, did that in any way color his appointment to the WSIB? And unfortunately, we have no opportunity to ask him those questions because there has been no public opportunity, there has been no committee opportunity, and because the government and Mr. Ford continue to try to do this inside, in his own office, and of course, really badly.
The NDP found that Naida and French coached a girls' basketball team together in Etobicoke back in 2013. Naida is the fifth government appointee to sever ties with the government after it was revealed they had personal ties to French. The Premier's office says an internal review is underway right now for all other pending appointments. And provincial cuts are being cited as a reason the entire board of the Brant County Children's Aid Society resigned. Now, that's just outside Hamilton. The board said planned cuts made it impossible to do their jobs. Now, the government is blaming the situation on mismanagement. With the board gone, Lorenda Redekop tells us what happens next.
Dozens of people took to the streets of Brantford in support of the 11 volunteer board members from Brant Child and Family Services who all resigned. Staff here blame government cuts.
The cuts need to stop. Cuts hurt kids, and we know that the services that we provide are what keeps kids safe.
The Children's Aid Society has run a deficit for years. The provincial government cut children's aid funding across the province, arguing the number of children in care is down. Brant is a region that's suffering due to the opioid crisis. Children's aid workers say the problems they're dealing with are complex.
When is the last time that any of you were called to a home to support a child and youth after an in-home overdose by their parent? People are dying in this community. What more evidence do you need?
Todd Smith, the Ontario government minister responsible, says he gave the board 10 days to bring in budget cuts, but they refused and instead resigned. The government has appointed a supervisor, Bernadette Gallagher, who heads the Children's Aid Society of Haldimand and Norfolk.
We have willing partners in all of the other children's aid societies across the province except for one right now, and that's why we'll be appointing a supervisor. She's going to be going into Brant. She's going to make sure that we get that CAS back on track.
The union representing workers worries this could lead to a larger problem.
This is the thin end of the wedge. There's 18 agencies just like this one who are also in deficits in the province of Ontario. We have a problematic funding model that must be fixed. Vulnerable children and families need supports in our communities, and the government must fund those supports.
The government says it's confident children and families will continue to receive the services they need. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Natalie Nanowski. No, I'm not in Muskoka. I'm actually in Caledon, in a quarry that has now become a beach. I'll have that story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Nick Cernkovich will have details of a humid summer spell in just a few minutes. But if you're looking for a spot to cool off this weekend, there's a new option for people who live near Caledon, a retired sand quarry turned local beach hotspot. Natalie Nanowski has the details.
From Hurontario Street, all you see is piles of sand and dump trucks. But hidden below is blue water and a little sandy area. No one here seems to mind the beach is actually a quarry.
I think any kind of water is great in the summer.
I like the way they've got it done up, and it's user-friendly.
There's kayak rentals, a diving dock in the middle of the water, and plenty of shallow areas to play in.
Those little guys. Are there any frogs?
No.
No, just minnows.
It used to be a spot where triathletes came to train until it opened to the public last year. And on days when it isn't cloudy, the beach is busy.
It's been good for families that come here. They love more private feel.
Never really growing up in Orangeville, we never really had any water close enough, so we'd always have to drive an hour away.
It's $15 a person or $25 for a family. And people don't mind paying once they know there's a cause.
So a lot of the money goes towards funding triathletes, and they're traveling to places all around the world because it's not cheap. So we want to make sure that the people who don't make as much money necessarily have an opportunity to be good of an athlete as someone in a higher end family.
Once you're in it, you almost forget that this is a quarry. The water is really warm and also really clean. The quarry is actually fed from a nearby spring.
Well, it's more clean than a lot of people's well. At the beginning of the year, it's tested and to make sure that, of course, it's safe like any body of water, but it's well above standards.
Best part? It's open 7 days a week. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Caledon.
Nick is back now with his extended forecast. We've got some humid weather tomorrow, but it's nothing compared to what's to expect next week.
No, it's not. In fact, we've got a bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of our temperatures and humidity in particular over the next 5 days. Tomorrow, it'll be hot and muggy, and then a little cooler on Sunday, and then we pick up that humidity again as we head through next week. Let's start with tomorrow. Now, this is all in advance of a cold front that's moving through. So tomorrow morning, we're actually expecting to see sunshine in the forecast on the heels of a clear night tonight. However, through about noon to 6 p.m. tomorrow, in advance of this cold front, we're looking at scattered showers and thunderstorms across the region. Gustier winds out of the southwest, but that's where we get that heat and humidity moving in for tomorrow. In behind the front, by tomorrow evening, temperatures drop a little bit, but the humidity drops as well, and we've got clear skies that'll carry us through all the way till the end of the weekend. Now, I mentioned the winds. As we move through the next 24 hours or so, into tomorrow afternoon, we've got southwesterly winds through the afternoon, and then behind the front, they kind of shift to a northwesterly direction, and then into Sunday, starts off a little breezy through the morning with this northwesterly wind, and that's why it's also going to be a little drier as well, and you'll notice that the way you might have noticed it today compared to yesterday. Overnight tonight down in southwestern Ontario, temperatures about 16, 17 degrees. As we move through tomorrow, pretty much everybody's going to see some thunderstorms throughout the day tomorrow. Temperatures up to about 31. Humidex values, though, as much as about 37 for tomorrow. For the Golden Horseshoe, we're looking at temperatures around 15, 16 degrees, generally clear skies tonight. By tomorrow afternoon, we've got highs to about 29 or 30 degrees, humidex values around 35, 36. The reason I've got 40% chance of showers in here is we will see the thunderstorms. It's just a matter of whether you see them in your backyard. They'll be more scattered toward the Golden Horseshoe tomorrow. By Sunday, as I mentioned, a little bit of a cool down, 26 degrees, humidex of only 30, and then we start to gain both temperatures and humidity into next week. And Tuesday and Wednesday, we're looking at temperatures that are going to hit the 30s and humidex values that'll be into the 40s for both days. Mike.
It's going to feel muggy. Thanks a lot, Nick.
You bet.
With the All-Star break over, the Jays are in New York for a series against the Yankees. Aaron Sanchez on the mound, 13 straight starts without a win. Things were looking good for him until the fifth. Yankees are up by one. Former Jay Edwin Encarnacion has the bases loaded, and he hammers this one off the wall in left center field. All three runners would come in to score. The Yankees go on to blank the Jays 4-0. On the heels of the Raptors' historic NBA win, there's a group hoping to bring another franchise to town, a team in the Women's Pro League. The WNBA hasn't said anything about expansion yet, but the Toronto group is pushing forward with plans to have a team in place next season. Greg Ross has more.
This is something that the league doesn't just need, but it wants.
Daniel Escott says while he and his business partner haven't gotten official approval from the WNBA, they have plenty of support in their bid to bring a team to Toronto. And he says the timing couldn't be better.
Curry lets it fly.
On the heels of a Raptors championship.
The timing was actually accidental. We were planning this, even before the playoffs began. It's time for the WNBA to grow. And Toronto is, I would contend, the best market in North America to do it.
He says they've already started laying the necessary groundwork to have a team up and running next spring.
We have core partners in place. We have a venue ready to go. We have all the dates locked down that will be needing the venue.
He wouldn't say which venue they plan to play in, but there are plenty of options, including the Mattamy Center, formerly Maple Leaf Gardens, now home to the Ryerson Rams.
If a WNBA team came, I told my parents, we got to get season tickets. I'd be there as often as I could.
Haley Robertson and Kara Tiemans both play for the Ryerson women's basketball team. They also run basketball camps for young girls.
Basketball camps this summer have skyrocketed. Our numbers are crazy.
And with the possibility of a pro women's team coming to the city, they say those girls would have role models to look up to.
If you got to see someone live, it'd be a really neat experience, just seeing that there is a pro path for women if you get to that level.
But there is still work to be done. Escott says they have been in talks with WNBA officials, but are waiting for the league to renew its collective bargaining agreement before submitting an official application.
We'll be submitting the paperwork before the end of the summer. We're meeting with the WNBA a number of times between now and then.
He says they're also working on a short list of team names.
So the two names that have come up the most are the Toronto Huskies, which is obviously a nod back to the original basketball team, and the Toronto Towers, after the CN Tower.
If all goes according to plan, they hope to be up and running just in time for the 2020 WNBA season. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the Leafs may not have brought it, but the Stanley Cup is in the GTA. We'll tell you why after the break. The Stanley Cup made a trip to the GTA today. The St. Louis Blues goalie Jordan Binnington brought it to his hometown of Richmond Hill, and he left with even more hardware.
I feel pretty good. Getting a key to the city in any city is incredible, but especially my hometown, it means a lot to me, and I'm really excited about it.
And plus, there's an addition to the Richmond Hill sign now honoring the superstar. It reads, "Home of Jordan Binnington, Stanley Cup champion." Binnington led his team to an unbelievable turnaround that ended with a victory in the Stanley Cup Finals. Well, that's it for our newscast tonight. There's a fun story on Quirks and Quarks tomorrow. It looks at Bitcoin mining. That's a process of using computer server banks to create units of the cryptocurrency. Well, it turns out mining for Bitcoin may use more resources than mining for gold. You can hear that tomorrow at noon on Quirks and Quarks. I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.